Welcome back to After the Ashes. It's our lucky number 13 episode, eh, Shauna?
I know. I'm excited. It's Halloween week, too. And it's a spooky one. We're talking about some spooky shit. SCE.
All right. Well, I'm just going to turn it over to you because I think you have some opinions about this one.
Oh, my gosh.
I've already written mine.
You've written yours.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about today. So, yes, welcome back. This is episode 13. As you know, we like a pithy title, so let's handle that. A bit dog always squeals.
You'll recognize that from my Substack for those that read it. The 5 people out there that actually do.
It's more than 5, but yes. So we're going to go inside SB 254, which is another little bit of legislation. Do not disappoint on the policy front. I just got the look. Steve just looked at me like, oh, no, are you really doing this? SCE's final plan that dropped today. This is their compensation plan that's been hotly debated. And LA County's $2 million secret.
Well, it's no secret.
It's not a secret anymore.
Nope.
So I think I'd like to always tell people, whenever you happen to be listening to this, we're recording this on October 29th.
Yes.
So today we just saw SCE drop their amended compensation plan.
Yeah, and we have briefly looked at it, so
yeah, we're
don't expect
looking
a
at the redlined memo, but
don't look at it. Don't expect a detailed.
But so far,
evaluation
guys,
nothing.
It's a stinker.
Well,
It's the same stinker it was, unless you're uninsured, in which case it may not be
such a bad deal.
Yep. To be frank, which is kind of what we've said. So do we want to, before we get into kind of breaking down what ended up in there and what didn't, let's talk a little bit about this. The other topic that's kind of been a hot topic, and that was the last minute legislation that Newsom signed when he was on his signing and vetoing spree, and 254. And the part that people were really upset about and what has made headlines is that, like, oh, surprise, there was a sneaky little bit in there.
No, there wasn't.
Allows SCE to, claw back from its payers.
No, there wasn't.
Its
because
customers.
it was,
well, okay.
Those who are loyal readers of mine will note that I had a post on September 3rd talking about this. I mean, I didn't get into the details because the details weren't necessarily known in the detail that it was portrayed through the bill. However, there were very, very public discussions about this particular issue, and there was a lot of pressure here in the district to try to go along to get along, and those that are claiming ignorance to it right now are feigning that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Thus, the bit dog always squeals, as the Southerners like to say.
And that is true. So, again, I think that what was kind of making its way through all of the various channels and groups and then into the media headlines was that, like, oh, this was so sneaky and it was in here and no one knew about it. And I know that some of our electeds have been quoted saying they didn't know.
Bullshit. Sorry, calling
and
it.
We're going to call bullshit on that because you did know. They did know. So I think, the takeaway there is, one, no surprises, right? There were no surprises.
I mean, they were going to re-up Edison. They were going to take care of them. And they were going to make sure that things were going to work out for Edison's favor.
Yep, as always.
I mean, the governor wanted that, and he clearly was going to bat for the utilities, who are a major constituent of his.
Exactly. Do you want to talk about why?
Well, I mean,
they fund him.
Know it.
Yeah. Just for anyone who doesn't understand that, you need to. It's public information. If you want to have an entertaining afternoon, Google campaign finance and who is funding your electeds, because someone has to pay to get them in office.
I think the most amazing
money
thing about
comes with strings.
I think the most amazing thing about all that was the $190,000 that they donated, and the parallels that, or sorry, the correlation that the LA Times of all places called out, that the donation was made by Edison time pretty close to the Prop 50 thing, and that, the two could be tied together, currying favor. And that wasn't the last of it. I mean, the governor has been using Prop 50 as a way to ensure that, favored constituencies are taken care of. We saw $140 million go to Planned Parenthood, which we all know is an important organization, but it's $140 million they found in a budget they couldn't find a couple $1 million for Altadena in. And one wonders, well, Planned Parenthood's CEO was one of the first to be attacking at Charlie Munger back in August. Again, if you read my Substack, you'll know about this. the whole thing just leaves me feeling like I need a shower.
Yeah, it's dirty.
Well,
It
and
is.
it's not
It's
politics as
icky.
usual. And, I think that the problems in Sacramento, those that there's an expression that I've heard, talking about a program that I worked against back in DC. They called them, captains of industry when they wanted to be, and fell off the turnip truck whenever they, were claiming ignorance. These organizations where they were, these very accomplished CEOs when they wanted to be in their community and get the accolades, and then all of a sudden, oh, I didn't understand what was going on. I'm just this, poor country boy. Didn't understand what happened. That doesn't play, and that's not going to play here. And with the attention that's been on all these issues here, and our electeds, we just need them to do the right thing. And it just feels like every time we turn around,
They don't.
it's not getting done. And there are other performative aspects of this that are, it's very, this is sort of why voters are getting very frustrated. And sure, you throw them a bone every now and again to make them feel good, like, Trump's bad, thus Prop 50.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not satiating the appetite that we need long term to be able to fulfill our society. I mean, this state is in some serious trouble. And, what happened with the SCE bill, it's just a pattern. It's just, again, as I've been saying in my Substack lately, and I've said it here, if it's one-off, that's one thing. But it's like everything's a one-off. So it's a pattern. We can't keep saying, oh, it's just a one-off. And as voters, we need to say, enough. I don't care if you're new. I don't care if you don't understand what's going on.
Right, it's not an excuse.
You have staff for that. You have AI for that. Don't claim ignorance to try to get yourself off the hook, because that's the squealing of the bit dog.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's especially troubling to hear some continue to use the excuse or make excuses for our electeds of like, oh, well, they didn't know, or they're new, they're freshmen. It's
who gives a shit? Our town was devastated.
Yeah.
Welcome to the game. Get in it.
By the way, for once, Steve is more angry than me. Only
Sorry.
because I'm actually still as angry as Steve, but for my mental health, I'm working very hard on regulation with my therapist. So there we are.
Oh, fine. Now I got to go back to being.
No, you don't. You don't. Don't worry. I'm going to lose it before the episode's out. But there is this, this thing, this, idea that keeps going around of like, again, they're new, they don't know this. But my response to that always is like, if you don't know how to do the job, don't take the job. If you're not equipped and prepared and qualified to take on a role, don't take it. And, it's not like these freshman politicians don't have a clue what's happening. They have chiefs of staff with how much experience? I'm going to use just,
decades.
Exactly. Just, as a general example, there's no one who finds themselves in this role for the first time ever without being surrounded by advisors and experts who have been doing this, to your point, for decades. So to play naive and to play that you were played, and you might have been played, but that's on you.
That's your choice. And that's what we elect you to not be played.
Correct. It's
not
disappointing. It's disappointing. And I think we have to it's hard. How did I say? We were having a conversation earlier and I said, the call's coming from inside the house, right? Like it's very easy for us here. We become a bit myopic in our Democrat versus Republican policies and ideals and values because, I think for the most part, not everybody, but many in our state and certainly in Altadena, we lean left, we lean liberal, we lean actually progressive.
No.
Right. I know. Steve feels attacked. Steve feels personally attacked, but
because left of center is considered Republican in Altadena.
It's like dirty. Left of center is dirty. Or like if you're anywhere, if you're moderate, it's a dirty word. Moderate's a dirty word. But I guess my point is that it needs to not be a dirty word in some respect. And when I say that, like the calls coming from inside the house, what I mean is, in our state where we are overwhelmingly Democratic led, when things aren't working, when we have problems, when we have this level of what feels like bluntly corruption. I don't have another word for it.
Incompetence.
Yeah. But also corruption when you're talking about, private interests, like a private for-profit utility, being able to effectively buy politicians. what's effectively has happened repeatedly. From Barger all the way up to Newsom. You have to, because they're funding their campaigns, and this is the system that we have set up, and the money has to come from somewhere, and this is where the money comes from. But
I
my
don't buy
point is
that
very
one.
simply
that's
that
that's an easy boogeyman. With the money.
okay, it is. But my point very simply is that there has to be some self-awareness and self-criticism, right? Like, clearly, not everything in our party is working great.
Well,
because if it were, we
it's
wouldn't
not.
be having
Well,
this conversation.
I think what's interesting about this, and I was having a conversation with somebody when this whole episode happened with Edison. As an elected, you have to choose, and you don't get to choose the timing, but you get to choose your reaction. And this goes back to being a freshman, and it's hard when you're a freshman to have to decide without context how you're going to take and lead through an extraordinary disaster like we had. Because this is a moment where not only are you being tested by your constituents, you're also being tested by your peers. And you take that time, and nobody really knows how you're going to react. Nobody knows what you're going to do. I remember the president of the Urban League when this happened. He was the former mayor of New Orleans, and he said, "This is a moment where what as a political you're made of, because this is the moment where you either step up and go and do and don't care the results or the effects of it because you're given essentially carte blanche, or do you not?" And I think that it's hard because without the context of being in office for an extended period of time, you don't understand what your lefts and rights are.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a test of our electeds to say, okay, where are you and how are you going to govern? And what are your values? And what are you going to do for your constituents? And I think introducing...
a lot of lip service, apparently.
I think introducing 782 and then voting for 240 or 254 and then claiming ignorance to it, I mean, that shows a very clear path as to how you are going to govern. That's where you feel the policy direction is going to be. Instead of introducing a bill like 797, which it was about ensuring those most vulnerable in our community were taken care of. And we weren't going to be exploited by Washington, D.C. for petty politics. Unfortunately, that's the bill that got vetoed. That's what courage looks like, in my mind.
I agree, Steve. I mean, I think, again, to my point and to yours, doing things the same way and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And it is especially here. And that insanity is destroying the state. And it's
destroying the party. I mean, we shouldn't be
we're
accepting
eating
this.
ourselves alive.
We are.
And it is a bigger examination. I know you've said repeatedly that what's happening in Altadena is a microcosm of what's happening in not just the state, but in the nation.
Yeah.
Politically. And the fight kind of for the fabric of who we are and the identity of who we are as a nation, as a people.
I think we've been calling out for something different. I think we've been calling out for something greater. And
I mean, this is, I didn't think I'd drop it in this episode, but now I get to.
Oh, no.
Let's
don't
talk
do
about,
it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You're right. People do want different. And let's look at the New York City election and talk about Zohran Mamdani, our Democratic Socialist candidate, who it looks like is going to win that one. And I, for one, am really pleased with that. I've sent these texts to Steve that say, I love Zohran. And I don't know that Steve agrees with me. I wish you could see his face right now.
My silence is deafening.
The silence is deafening. But, if you want to get into that again, read Steve's Substack, Alta Policy Wonk. He actually wrote a piece talking about how our party, the Democratic Party, is really facing an existential crisis that, again, we are a microcosm of, and how what the Democratic Party thinks people want is not necessarily what they want, and why our polling keeps being off, and why the results keep being off, and why the legislation we expect to happen doesn't and other things do, and we're somehow surprised by this, even though this just keeps happening. And I think that, to Steve's point in there, that people do want, and that he just made in this podcast, that people do want something different. they're just yearning for change, for something different, and anything that represents that, we'll take it. It's frankly how we ended up with Trump, right?
It's a void.
Because people thought,
yeah.
oh, Trump, it represents something different, and maybe it's going to break it all down and be great, without realizing what that meant and what we were opening the door to, and now here we are.
Well, this is the existential crisis right now inside the
It
Democratic
is.
Party. I mean, I've been hearing it from people much higher up than just Altadena or even California. And, you know, it's a question of the establishment versus I call them those that read it I call them the surgeons. I don't want to call them insurgents because they're surging. The question is, who gets to the point first where will the establishment finally run candidates that aren't safe, that have a little bit of edge, that can talk to people in a populist tone and have a sharp tongue and do the things that are necessary, but also bring the substance of policy to the table in solving problems, not just from an activist perspective, but from a policy solving problem perspective? Or is it going to be the surgeons that, you know, figure out the policy side first because they have the message? And this is the fundamental battle that's going on inside the Democratic Party. I mean, look at AOC, for instance. I know we have somebody who likes to go by 3 initials in our district, but AOC is
I'd like to be called SDB from here out. I just want to make that known. Please reference me as SDB.
I hear that. I think ODB, but anyway.
I'm okay with that too. Please carry on.
And I'm SAS. But yeah, I think about this, and AOC has there's been an evolution there. You know, she has moderated, you know, yes, she's still out there doing, you know, the noise with Bernie and all the, you know, the take on the billionaires, but her positions have moderated to the point that the DSA doesn't want anything to do with her. They excommunicated her or whatever they did with her because of, you know, she realizes that to get things done in Washington or to get things done politically, you can't be an activist all the time.
Right. But then your constituents who got you there because they wanted you for your progressive values and ideals that are very real and meaningful and needed, you know, look at you as like you're a sellout or you flopped or you haven't done it.
But that's not your constituents. That's part of your constituents. You also have to be able to deliver for the people who voted you in and the others that live in your district. That's your job. And that's compromise. And compromise sucks sometimes. But at the same time, you should try to stay as true to your values as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
which is not always a winning proposition, right?
Sometimes you have to lose to win.
Yeah.
It's not always. You got to look at the scoreboard at the end of the day. That's what I was told by a very, very, very influential person that I've dealt with in Washington. Is don't look at the day-to-day. Look at the scoreboard. And quite frankly, guys, in California right now, scoreboard doesn't look good for what we're doing. Even with Prop 50 getting through, will it win in the end? Or is it just a touchdown and the end of the game is going to be we're still going to lose?
And not just still going to lose, but a much more significant loss because, you know, a house that we could have retaken, we may not when everyone else follows suit and redistricts themselves. But you know,
instead of running the right candidates. And, you know, I listened to a national figure last weekend on Friday night, and his whole piece was, it's about candidates.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have the right candidates.
I'm going to wrap us up on this particular part before we move on to the SCE compensation plan, very simply by saying it's interesting to see what happened in Paradise, California, because there is we're going to get to that. Sorry, Steve was just giving me a look like I forgot something. I forgot nothing,
Well, I
Steve.
think
we're going to get there. Don't worry.
It fits the theme. Before
it is.
Don't
worry. We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Uh-huh.
But what I wanted to say is that I think it was interesting to look at Paradise and what ended up happening there with so many people who started, you know, doing what Serena and I did, going to Sacramento. But beyond that, now that they're years out, a number of those folks in Paradise have actually become legislators themselves. They have run for seats. They have been up there working with and finding people to sponsor bills on their behalf because, you know, at some point, I can't say it enough. No one's speaking for us. No one's going to do it for us. And nobody cares, frankly, unless we demand that. And we're going to have to continue to demand it one way or another. And it's likely going to be taking on the mantle. Yeah, it's like taking the mantle on themselves because there's no one, even if we don't want to do it, there's no one else who's going to do it. So, as promised, we're also going to talk about, LA County paying off its CEO.
There you go. That's the one. Because I was figuring, like, just follow the theme of,
All right, folks.
delusional.
We're going to
government.
come back to the SCE compensation plan, I promise. But so I mean, this is another one that's made headlines the last couple of weeks. And if you are a regular listener, you know that Steve has been traveling for work because one of us does have a day job that actually pays the bills. Not me right now, but it's Steve. And I actually took a little mental health break and took a nice little couple weeks off and did a little East Coast road trip and some fall color. And oh my gosh, if you have not been to Bar Harbor, Maine, and Acadia, which is one of our national parks. Bahaba. It was, yes, near, we travel through Peabody, not Peabody, Peabody to get there.
In Boston.
Yeah, I love it. I love all of the East Coast pronunciations. But
no, it's just massholes.
Masshole, I know. I was driving a Tesla. Listen, I was driving a Tesla, which is a whole other conversation about the flat tire I got and no spare. That's a conversation for another episode. But and a very amusing one in the pouring rain in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. But with Massachusetts plates, and I kept joking that like I am the masshole.
You really are.
So I can but it's perfect. I can just drive the way I do here, and it was nothing unusual at all. It was perfect.
Just don't sit in the left lane.
Which I don't. Ever.
Mad.
And listen, if you know me, you know I learned to drive on the 110 freeway, and it is my biggest pet peeve is people forcing others to illegally pass them on the right. Mm-hmm. That is actually illegal. If I will refer to the old Reddit adage, am I the asshole? If you are sitting in the left lane and you are not the fastest vehicle actually passing someone, but just hanging out in the left lane, you are the asshole. All right.
Dennis Leary.
Now, moving on. I don't know, but there should be a song about it. Let's talk about the settlement. So LA County, for anyone who doesn't know, we have a CEO, and that has been, up until recently, that has been an appointed position, appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Our current CEO, please, what's her name again? Gosh, I always forget. She has a very unique name. Thank you, Fessia Davenport. It was recently kind of breaking news while Steve and I were away.
While you were away.
Well, while I was away and then Steve was away. You're splitting hairs. But we were still talking about this stuff daily. Okay. But the breaking news was that it was discovered and disclosed that a secret $2 million payment was made to her.
Yeah, initially she was taking time off for 6 months with no word about that. Then the LA Times broke.
But still collecting her $800,000 plus per year salary.
Yes.
Yep. And now a $2 million payoff while still collecting that salary, which all comes down to her feeling that she was,
wrongfully targeted.
She was targeted and her professional reputation and future professional abilities damaged by Measure G. So Measure G, to refresh, because I hope you voted on it, and don't forget to vote, folks. But, if you did vote on this, you remember Measure G, one of the things that did was make LA County CEO an elected role. So that means the person who is appointed was going to have to step out so that they could then become, this elected position. And so she felt that this was, really terrible for her that this Measure G passed, and brought a lawsuit and got a $2 million settlement, as well as the ability to stay in her job, which is amazing to me.
In her letter, according to the LA Times, I'll read the direct quote from the LA Times because it's pretty great. Davenport's August 12th letter stated that other department heads had received significant payments upon departure. She noted prior Chief Executive Officer Sachi Hamai had received $1.5 million. The letter also makes an apparent reference to Mary Wickham and Rodrigo Castro Silva, mentioning the former county attorneys by their last names. Wickham got about $449,000 in severance pay, and Castro Silva received $213,000, according to records obtained by the Times. So, suddenly she's now worth $2 million.
And I'll just say again, when everyone who's a fire victim wants to know where our taxpayer dollars go, since it wasn't to a fire response or anything else, and it's constantly settlements, I mean, this is it. It's constantly paying off LA County's legal woes.
What, you mean like the $4
bananas.
billion
exactly.
plus another $885 million?
Yes.
Oh, but they couldn't find a couple $1 million for
For us.
for 797.
Correct.
Oh, because there's
Because it's too much money. No one has the money. It's,
by the way,
it's-
this was
again,
2
it's
days
fucking
after
couch change.
the governor vetoed our bill.
Yeah.
And while I know that there's a difference between the state and the county, we all know that
There's money.
This is a joke.
There's plenty of money for everything they want to have money for. So yeah, again, that was kind of the big upset, and people should be upset about that because this is where our money's going. So before we wrap up today's episode, let's definitely talk about this compensation plan because to give people a little context, if you are listening, for the first time or for any reason aren't familiar with this, it appears in fact, the article yesterday's headline was SCE CEO, shares that it's likely, quote unquote, likely that their equipment will be found at fault for the start of the Eden fire. Yeah, no shit. It was a very thanks Captain Obvious moment.
Sorry, he was hanging out at the event that I saw in the Outlook. What was it? The Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, I could not. I mean, I cannot. When I saw the photos of, oh my gosh, our electeds, our neighborhood town council, our little volunteer town council who love a photo op, hanging out with SCE, and I'm going to stop right there because that's for the next topic of it's going to be talking about our town council election is going to be something we're going to discuss in the next episode. And if I want to whet your palate for part of that, it's the fact that, it's one of the things that came to light in our group this week is that someone who's been sitting on the council a very long time works for SCE. And that seat is being contested along with 8 others. So we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. But it is, it begs a lot of questions, right? And when you see that, and it again goes back to just there being no accountability and no real meaningful, you have to play in all of these rooms, but you can do so in a way too where you're holding folks accountable, and we're not doing that in any way, shape, or form. Let's talk about this SCE plan. The offer came back. So they have their settlement offer that is effectively to get people to circumvent lawsuits because, as we discussed on another episode all about this, ultimately, this is not a benevolent gift from SCE. They're not trying to make right. They're not trying to make anybody whole. They're not trying to, as some of our community folks, leaders have been saying, like fix what they broke. They're not going to do that. It's never going to happen. But what this is trying to do is to save their ass because every single person who takes the settlement offer will save SCE a small fortune because they will get pennies on the dollar
Again,
compared.
it's not SCE's money. Let's forget.
Correct.
It's
our money.
It's our money.
We're paying. This is our money. Just to be real clear, we're funding this.
Sorry,
We've already funded it, and
I
we're
want to stop
going to
calling
further
it
fund
the SCE settlement because yes, it's SCE settling,
And
but
it's
it's
our
our
money.
damn money.
Yep.
It's not theirs. It's not their shareholders. It's not the corporate money. It's ours.
It's and as usual, it's incredibly upsetting because it is our money. So we're looking at the update to the compensation plan that dropped today. They had hosted some, open feedback sessions that people participated in, sharing their frustrations around the plan and asking their questions and expressing what they felt were critical needs to the plan. A group of neighbors in one group, have been fighting this and made this their mantle that they were going to demand SCE make it right. Not surprisingly, SCE is absolutely not going to make it right. And actually, if you go through their offer, I can't imagine a bigger flop because if you go through the 50 odd points that they've changed in this redlined memo that I'm looking at right now, none of them are good. They've made a couple of changes that were requested, but ultimately, this is actually less of an offer than what it started out with. Oh yeah, it does. So I mean, let's go through just some of the key points. I mean, one thing they did was expand the eligibility areas. One of the big complaints and frustrations on this one was the fact that it used the DINS map in a way, the CAL FIRE map of damage in a very distinct way that excluded a lot of people who very clearly had smoke, fire, ash damage, or even burn outside of the quote unquote burn perimeter. Those folks are now included because they have changed that perimeter.
Well, and because they got the extra money from 254.
Correct. They got money. So, we look at that. For the most part, everything is the same. Kind of interestingly, they also added some things for commercial businesses. Like there's some tenant improvement. TI is now included. But, personal property loss was reduced, that the contents property coverage was actually reduced. There are a couple of other areas that were reduced. This thing literally makes it worse in quite a few areas, which blew my mind. It was like, oh, you didn't like it the first time? Well, here's less. So enjoy, take what you get and like it, or don't, right?
Or you just
Or
keep
don't.
pursuing
So,
legal.
I'd say that this, to me, I've had a lot of people writing me this morning asking my opinion and what do I think and what would I do. And my opinion has not changed on this in that, I maintain for the majority, especially if you had insurance, because don't forget, every thing in this offer is minus what your insurance is, and not just what you've already been paid by insurance, but what's available in your policy. So all those dollars that you've been for the last 9-10 months fighting to get out of your policy, and you're still fighting to get out of your policy, and your insurer is doing everything they can not to pay you, that amount will be offset on any kind of settlement that you take from SCE, and then you still have to fight your insurance to try and get that money. So, I mean, that is a really critical piece to understand. But again, just to go back, I maintain that, for people who are insured for that reason and many others, this is a loser deal. If you really do the math and you have insurance, it's literally pennies. Like I did it for myself, even with the significant loss that I have of business, economic loss, serious, significant personal injury, total loss of obviously my home and an additional structure. All of the things, when you counterbalance that with insurance and subrogation, I would get and then attorney's fees, I would literally get nothing. It was nothing. I was like, it would be a net zero, less than zero payment. But the fact remains that for some folks, this may be worth considering. If you're uninsured, especially if you're an uninsured renter, this may not be a bad deal. It actually may be a decent deal.
Well, and it's designed to address certain segments.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
Altadena is not one single
100%.
homogenous town, as we all know.
Correct.
So
and everyone's needs are really different, which we know from everything that we've experienced so far. So, I'd say again, as I said previously, do not consult, your the internet, a neighborhood group, a coalition, ChatGPT, or anything else on this. That's the only person who can truly provide you the counsel that you need is an attorney. And so hopefully all of you have a trust. If you are in this, be it a renter, a total loss, a standing home with smoke damage, whatever your situation may be, I genuinely hope that you have a reputable attorney. And when I say reputable, meaning they're not advertising, because the good ones don't. And that they can counsel you on what is right for you. Because again, for some people, this will make sense, but for the majority, it's not going to. And don't be fooled and don't be taken by this. Don't let them off the hook. If you have the choice, and I recognize that not everyone does have that privilege and choice, but if you do, fuck them.
On that happy note.
Yep.
All right.
Indeed. Let's
talk. I love doing this with Shauna because she never tells you she always tells you what she thinks.
You always know where you stand with me, and I'm like that. I'm that person who even in junior high school, I would never talk behind your back when I could say talk directly to your face.
A very good friend of mine always says, real friends stab you in the front.
I agree with that sentiment 100%. If I had a Subway take, that would be part of my Subway take. I love it. By the way, I'm obsessed with Subway takes. I don't know if anyone else watches Subway.
All right, so shall we do the shout outs? Because
let's
I think
do our shout outs.
We've
hit our time. I want to do some shout outs for our local businesses, of which there are no shortages today. I want to mention that George's Liquor, which you may or may not know, but George's Liquor is located at Altadena Drive in Lincoln.
Yeah.
And you probably know it from the super awesome vintage original sign that is still standing.
Indeed.
I'm so glad that sign is standing. Or from the fact that it's where you would often see our neighborhood caballeros hanging out on their horses, buying lotto or a beer or whatever you do when you ride your horse up to the liquor shop. It's whatever it was, it made me very happy. But this is another legacy business that has been in town for decades, and really nice to see that reopen. And they're one who don't have social media, don't really do the internet, rely on word of mouth. So if we can, folks, go support them. I used to pop in there just to like buy something random like a soda or lottery scratchers, even though I'm not even a lottery person, because I just wanted to support them and I loved going to that shop and they're really nice there.
You don't
So
drink,
I do. I don't drink. You're so. But they're great. So if you can go and support them. I also wanted to mention Altadena Cookie Co. Beloved
we
little.
love it. My wife,
I know, me too.
huge fan.
I love Jessica. So and if you don't follow them on Instagram, Altadena Cookie Co., please do follow them on Instagram and go through the history. Aside from the fact that the cookies are great, and yes, they do some gluten-free options by request. They also have, and vegan, they also have just some of their stuff is hilarious and so good. I mean, I've reposted some of their content because I've loved their stuff over the years. But the whole reason of having this conversation is that they have a brick and mortar coming to Lincoln, not far from George's Liquor and Lucy's
coffee shop.
Unincorporated Coffee. In that same Unincorporated Coffee development with Lucy's, they are getting ready to open soon. You can follow them on Instagram, see their progress. They've been posting a lot of awesome
Didn't Lucy's
shots.
get some press yesterday with the LA Times?
Yes, they did, which was nice to see too, because the Altadena Dining Club rolled up
Right.
and was there doing their thing and supporting, which is awesome. I love seeing all of it happening from so many angles, because can't say it enough. Takes the whole village. We're all in it together. Hate that expression, but it couldn't be truer for us. So with that, I'm going to give you one more little small biz shout out, and it's a kind of a random one, but I want to say a little note for Ganal Lumber, who, if you care about your politics, and you like to vote with your dollar, you may not want to go to Home Depot for everything, but we kind of need a lot of shit right now at Home Depot, a lot of us.
Home Depot.
What? Their CEOs? Come on, Steve.
It's Home Depot.
Oh, Steve. I call it Home Despot. That's a whole other conversation.
Look,
but I wanted
Home Depot stock bought me my first house. So.
Okay. Well, then, biased much? No. I want to just give a shout out to Ganal, because they're another local chain, family-owned, operated chain. But when we had the rain a few weeks back, and a lot of us were dealing with like, holy shit, we're going to have erosion, we're going to have a problem. And I had to go get sandbags, in the dark, and
I remember the story.
Oh yeah, I know of the story. But my visqueen, which I used to cover my problem areas, came from the contractor's desk at Ganal Lumber, and they actually gave me a discount. They were like, "Oh, you're a fire survivor," and gave me a little discount. And it wasn't quite wholesale, but wasn't much off of that. And I didn't ask for it, and I couldn't have appreciated it more. And it just made me appreciate Ganal Lumber a little more. So shout out to Ganal Lumber, multiple locations. Our closest is on East Colorado.
Yep, the old Hummer dealership.
Yep. So with that, let's wrap it up. This one, we did it pretty good. A tight 40 minutes. You know where to find us.
Only, 4 deposits in the swear jar? Maybe 5?
A couple were from you today.
I know. I'm sorry, folks.
You can find us. You can find me, Shauna Dawson Beer, Beautiful Altadena, online at Beautiful Altadena, Instagram, Substack. Our groups are online as well. And you can find Steve
at the Alta Policy Walk on Substack.
But only on Substack, because he otherwise doesn't do social media, because he's a cool kid.
No, you don't want to be.
I don't have enough time. And as always, if you want to send a comment, a question, a criticism, a take, whatever it may be, you can send that our way via email or through any of the social media channels. But email also works, and that's beautifulaltadenaog@gmail.com. Until next time.
We'll see you later. Have a good one.